Hello, everyone. I'm Rebecca Weber. This is your AMAC podcast, Better for America. If you're not getting your political news from AMAC, then you won't be informed about American politics. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Now, today we have with us a great man, a real patriot. His name, Tom Fitton. Tom is president of Judicial Watch, an institution dedicated to fighting for truth and the public's right to know. He has been their president since 1998, and I am thrilled to have him on the show today. Tom, thank you so much for being here with us. Welcome to Better for America.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to your members.
Really is wonderful. And I do have a couple of issues I want to dive right into. But first, I want to talk a little bit about Donald Trump. And the reason why I do is because President Trump was voted as AMAC's Man of the Year. Our members really do support him. And so they're watching what's happening as it relates to this special master ruling. Now, the Judicial Watch has been publishing a lot of coverage on the victory that was Judge Cannon's ruling to appoint a special master to Trump's case. So I wanted to ask you, Tom, how do you see this playing out, and what might we see from the Biden DOJ?
Well, to take a step back, this is about what are the rights that a president has with respect to his own records. So when you hear the noise from the Justice Department and they say presidential records this, classified records that, that may be important if you're talking about any other person other than the President of the United States, meaning other folks are constrained by that law that may require them to turn over records, that may require them certainly to protect classified information as traditionally understood. But when you're the president, you kind of have this inherent right and authority with respect to how you handle these records, whether you decide to keep them classified, how you use them. And after your presidency, if you take them with you, there are, at least based on the Justice Department's prior position in a big case that Judicial Watch had, they're his. So, that's what this is all about. And a special master in this case, which of course the Justice Department vociferously opposed, is one way for the court to say, well, hold off a second. There's a dispute here about these records. And just because the Justice Department says they're presidential records, these are public records, they're the government's records, the president has no interest, that's a legal conclusion. And that's a conclusion that the court has to arrive to separately with the help of the special master. And that's what's going on here. And I think it's notable the Justice Department doesn't even want that.
Very interesting. And I do want to share a statement just a few weeks ago that you had announced on Twitter, essentially saying that Bill Clinton kept sensitive tapes in his sock drawer and didn't turn them over to the National Archives. And so the Judicial Watch sued, and the DOJ National Archives Court told you that you had a right to, that Clinton rather had a right to keep anything that he wanted, and that there wasn't anything that anyone could do about it. Boy, you really challenged the hypocrisy here that we see in the media, which is really targeted against Republican leaders. Why do you think we see such a double standard? And we see this over and over and over again.
Well, in many ways, it's a consistent standard, which is the rules don't apply to Trump. Doesn't matter what the rules are. It's about Trump, and we're going to blow up the rules, going to blow up the presidency, going to blow up the Constitution just to make his life miserable, try to jail him or otherwise hassle him as he considers a run against President Biden or whoever the nominee of the Democratic Party is. And that's the case I was referencing earlier on, where, we were on the wrong end. I mean, we had advocated what the Justice Department's currently saying. Well, the president took records from the White House. These audio tapes were of him being president, him talking to foreign leaders, which is presumptively classified, and other topics that are of government interest that are about his duties and responsibilities as president. We thought, where's the Presidential Records Act? Where's the National Archives? And what they came in and they said to us, the Justice Department specifically told the court that if the president takes records with him and he doesn't give them to the archives, they're presumptively personal. So when all this noise started happening about all this bric-a-brac started happening in February, I thought, what is going on here? We fought and lost on this very issue, and the Justice Department did a 180. And of course, the Justice Department's prior position has been that these records are his. The National Archives and the judge had ruled at the request of the archives and the Justice Department that really there's no way to second guess the president's decision-making here. and there's really no enforcement, not even a civil enforcement they can bring against the president if they have a dispute about presidential records. He's the decider in chief when it comes to presidential records. The Justice Department knows that. That was their prior legal position, and the fact that they raided their home anyway, based on the idea that he wasn't, is significant evidence of corruption.
It sure is. And you know, the American people are really losing trust in our public institutions and places like the Department of Justice, the FBI. And we do see a double standard.
Well, the court is seeing it too. I mean, the president's winning. I mean, he hasn't been as forceful as I would be. You know, his lawyers are what lawyers do. They push forward, pull back, push forward, pull back. You know, there's a kind of a minuet going on here. But the court clearly doesn't trust the Justice Department. She wouldn't have appointed a special master otherwise. She thinks these circumstances are extraordinary. She thinks there are legitimate disputes about the nature of these records. So she's rejected out of hand the Justice Department's fundamental basis for the raid and suggested that she doesn't trust it.
Unbelievable. I mean, this is good that we've got someone that sees it for what it really is. We'll have to see how this whole thing plays out, and I appreciate your feedback and comments there. This will be something that we'll be watching. I do want to shift just a little bit and talk about some of the other major issues that I think all Americans should really be aware of. And so here at AMAC, we do a good job educating our members. One issue that they are so passionate about is, please, I receive letters, Tom, from members that are writing in and emailing me, please, AMAC, stand up against this radical critical race theory, the indoctrination of our children, the sexualization of our children. And I want to point to a recent civil suit victory that the Judicial Watch is responsible for. You had really great progress in the fight against the left's indoctrination of our children within our schools. Again, I can't emphasize it enough. Our members who are over the age of 50, we're a 50-plus organization, they care about this issue. And recently, David Flynn, a high school teacher in Massachusetts, was abruptly fired for objecting to and denouncing critical race theory and Black Lives Matter propaganda within the school curriculum. You assisted him in the federal suit against the opposition of his First Amendment right, where the court ruled that his firing was unjust. So what does this case mean for parents and to our listeners? And how could this impact schools across the country?
Well, this was an interesting case because Coach Flynn, he was a teacher in the school system, but he was fired not from his job as a teacher. He was high school football coach. So why on earth, right? And he and his lovely wife found out that their daughter, I think in 7th grade, their ancient history class, they had a CRT curriculum inserted, and the teacher was showing up online in an avatar with Black Lives Matter. So they objected for the reasons that many people object. Besides the kind of the nature of the lesson, no one was told about it. The parents didn't know about it, right? And they just found out about it through happenstance, through COVID. You have more access to some of this material than you otherwise would have. So he went and complained, and he got fired. So we filed a federal civil rights lawsuit over this. And the irony is, they won at the lower court, and we appealed it. And in the middle of the appeal, we settled it. And the settlement included a letter acknowledging Coach Flynn was right, that parents need to be informed, that there's got to be collaboration when we engage in this type of sensitive teaching of our children. And by the way, teachers aren't allowed to wear this Black Lives Matter propaganda in the classes anymore. So that was a great victory, and I encourage your members to read that letter because it provides a guide, right? What's so troubling about this, a guide and a model for others. What's so troubling about this issue is that the CRT is being propagandized among our children. The parents are not only not involved in this and not brought in, but when they try to enter the conversation, they're told to stay out of it, and they're harassed or not given any time to speak at meetings. And what should happen in any school curriculum decision, it should be a collaboration among, the educators and the parents who pay their salaries, especially in the public school system. So that's where we should be going on this. Now, we can talk about critical race theory being an abomination unto our constitutional system and anti-American. that's designed to sow racial division and overthrow our system of government and the American way of life by pretending everyone is racist or everyone is a victim of racism, depending on who you are and where you are situated. But that's a different issue, and just imposing it on children without the involvement of parents. So it's like it's objectionable enough on its face, and then they try to sneak it in, and that's what Coach Flynn exposed and has been vindicated over.
Well, we're so grateful for that. And what we're seeing critical race theory, not just in our schools, but in our military schools. It's like wildfire, right? It's traveling beyond the school system. It's infesting our institutions like the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. And I say, my gosh, why aren't they honoring Americans who are really their devoted students really to patriotism? And now what they're doing is they're implementing this crazy thought that people should be more aware of their whiteness and the unjust country that they're born into. It just seems so anti-American to me, and it goes against everything that Martin Luther King stood for. We should be judging people by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. These young students, I think, will be serving our country one day. So why would this institution fold and be so willing to fill their heads with anti-American propaganda?
Yeah, we expose that going on at West Point, which is training it's not just young students. These are the rising leadership of our Army. You can bet it's happening at the Naval Academy, the Air Force Academy. We've got litigation and investigations there. And it's anti-Americanism. It's repackaged Marxism. And our military is supposed to defend us from the enemy within, from the enemy without, right? And they're being told by the radicalized CRT proponents that the enemy is America. So we got to protect our kids. We got to protect our country from having our military ruined and turned against the American way of life through this brainwashing propaganda that monstrously is being promoted by the Biden administration. Because you remember, President Trump, right? Once it became exposed, and everyone kind of knew this was going on in the sense, people call it PC, but there was this escalation and things metastasized in terms of that critical race theory. It burst into our institutions in dramatic ways during the Trump administration, using the death of George Floyd as the leverage point. And we've got to stop it. It's in our military. It's in our schools, as we've discussed. It's all over our government. It's a guiding principle of the Biden administration. It's a guiding governing principle, if not the number one. It's climate, killing as many babies as possible through abortion, and critical race theory, and that Marxist agenda.
That's right. I mean, when I tell you it's being, the information that I see, the courses, the diversity, equity, inclusion type 15-minute online courses that are being encouraged that, business owners shove down their employees' throats. It all just seems so wrong. And we just, here I'd like to remind our listeners that there's such power in prayer, tremendous power in prayer. So we do need to lean in to our faith, and we need to remind ourselves that we've got a creator, a God who loves us so much, and pray for this nation. I am so grateful for the Dobbs decision, because we know that thousands of babies, likely their lives they'll see life because of that decision, and we pray for millions more. We've got to educate our people, educate the community that every life is precious and every life has meaning, and come up with real strategies to provide people who are in difficult situations with a path, with some hope. And so that is something else that we're always focused on here.
I mean, we
but
could
that was
do
a beautiful
worse.
win.
I mean, you would think that people of good faith on both sides of that issue, can't we all just celebrate motherhood, and that we have to
Amen.
lift up and praise and support mothers, especially pregnant mothers? And because right now there's this fanaticism, forget about being pro-choice, it's encouraging abortion. And just
Ignoring
saying
all
that
of the
you got to
science.
do it. They're being it seems to me the culture right now is kind of railroading women into having abortions who otherwise would not have in different circumstances, because it fits an ideological agenda from those pushing it. These are tragic times. We have these great opportunities, as you highlight, to extend the protections of the law to the preborn. But in the meantime, women are being panicked about life and ending it through abortion. And we have to try to curtail that tragedy and protect as many pregnant mothers and their children as possible within the law.
We are not shy about where we stand on the issues. And as a conservative organization, we believe in things like the sanctity of life and the rule of law. We believe in limited government. And we believe in the American dream. And we look to improve the lives of all Americans. And we need the right people who have the courage and the backbone to lead this nation going forward. So I just pray that enough people get out there and vote, that we have a free and fair election. I do see great hope for America's future, but I feel as if this is our one shot this November. I want to ask you a final question before I let you go. Share with us, what is the hope that you have for the future of our country? And what message could you leave our over 2 million AMAC members as it relates to the future of America as a whole, perhaps what they can do to help inspire them so that we can help save the great values that make this country so special?
What's both hopeful and troubling at the same time. What's troubling is it doesn't take a lot for things to go south. The wrong leaders in the wrong places making the wrong decisions, either based on horrible policy, contempt for the rule of law, or just basic corruption, protect for our constitutional principles, can have significant damage to the country. Well, the happy mirror image of that is the right people in the right place can do wonderful things for the nation. And so, it doesn't take much to save the nation, and right now it doesn't take much to make the republic totter, as it seemingly is doing. So I want to encourage all your viewers, all your members, to think, what is it I can do to help the country, and do it. And they can support AMAC, they can support Judicial Watch, they can go out and work for the party of their choice, the candidate of their choice, support other good public policy organizations, share information about the issues we're talking about with their neighbors, go online, be an online activist. There are all sorts of things they can do. And, people get nervous and upset. What is it I can do? I can't, what do we do? Well, I don't know. Are you doing what you can do? Don't worry about what everyone else is doing. What is it you can do? And most people are sharp. They know what they can do, and they should just do it rather than making excuses as to, well, I'll do it next week. Well, there may not be a next week for our country if things go further south as they've been doing.
Great message. And I want to encourage our listeners to go to amacaction.org, because there is so much that people can do really without leaving home. Calls to actions. We've got thousands of members stepping up as poll watchers. We need you engaged in the fight. And amacaction.org has a ton of information there for those interested in learning. Tom, this was so nice to have you. I enjoyed sitting with you today. I just so appreciate you. Your dedication, your efforts to preserve this country are so greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time today.
Well, it was an honor to do it. I'm a big fan of AMAC, and there are just a lot of great people out there, and it's not a sleeping giant. It's a giant that's quite active, and so we're happy to be working with you.
Excellent. Well, thank you again. I'd love to have you come back with us. We'll have to see what happens this November. Keep up the good fight. And I want to thank each and every one of you out there listening. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Make sure you watch, listen, and track breaking news and more like this podcast by downloading the AMAC News app. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share wherever you are on social media. Until next time, I'm Rebecca Weber. This is your podcast, Better for America. Thank you for being here. God bless you. Have a great day, everyone.